Snow fell in thick curtains across Glacier Lake the night Marcus Chen pulled his battered truck onto the frozen access road. The headlights barely cut through the white chaos, illuminating only a few feet of rutted ice and skeletal trees bending under the storm's weight. Beside him, Bear shifted in the passenger seat, the massive Belgian Malinois pressing his scarred muzzle against the frosted window, breath fogging the glass in steady rhythm. Marcus hadn't been back to Montana in 12 years. Hadn't seen this lake since he was 17, before the Marines, before Afghanistan, before everything that broke him into the man he was now. Broke wasn't even the right word. Shattered fit better. Hollowed out. A shell walking around pretending the pieces still connected. The letter had found him 3 weeks ago at a VA shelter in Portland. Forwarded twice, crumpled, stained with coffee from someone's careless desk. The handwriting was shaky but unmistakable. Marcus, your Uncle Thomas passed in his sleep last month. The cabin on Glacier Lake is yours now. I'm sorry I couldn't reach you sooner. Please come home. There are things you need to know. Father Michael, St. Catherine's Church. Marcus had stared at that letter for an hour, sitting on the edge of a cot in a room that smelled like industrial cleaner and other people's exhaustion. Bear had rested his head on Marcus's knee, sensing the shift, the weight of something pulling them toward a past Marcus had spent years trying to outrun. Uncle Thomas, the silent fisherman who'd taught Marcus to tie knots and read weather in the clouds. The man who'd lived alone on the lake for 40 years, speaking to almost no one, keeping to himself with a deliberateness that felt less like choice and more like penance. Now the cabin was his. And Marcus, jobless, homeless, carrying $127 in cash and a dog who'd saved his life more times than he could count, had nowhere else to go. The truck's tires crunched over ice as the road narrowed, pine trees closing in on both sides. The storm had been building for hours, and the temperature was dropping fast. Marcus could feel the cold seeping through the truck's rusted floor panels, through his worn jacket, settling into bones that remembered too many cold nights in too many wrong places. Bear's ears suddenly pricked forward, a low rumble building in his chest. Easy, Marcus murmured, one hand dropping to the dog's shoulder. We're almost there. The cabin appeared through the storm like something emerging from a nightmare. Dark, hunched against the hillside, windows boarded shut, the whole structure listing slightly to one side, as if the mountain itself were trying to push it into the frozen lake below. Snow had piled against the walls in massive drifts, some reaching halfway up the first floor. The roof sagged under the weight of ice and decades. Marcus killed the engine. Silence rushed in, broken only by the wind screaming across the lake and the tick of the cooling engine. Well, he said quietly. Home sweet home. Bear didn't wait for permission. The dog was out of the truck the moment Marcus opened his door, immediately circling the property in widening arcs, nose to the ground, every muscle alert. Even injured, even recovering from the shrapnel wound that had ended his military career alongside Marcus's, Bear moved with the fluid precision of a trained operator. Marcus grabbed his duffel from the truck bed. Everything he owned fit in one bag. Sleeping bag, change of clothes, toiletries, medication he tried not to take, and the discharge papers he couldn't throw away no matter how many times he wanted to. The front porch groaned under his weight, boards soft with rot. The door was locked, but the key Father Michael had included in the envelope turned smoothly, as if someone had oiled the mechanism recently. The door swung inward on silent hinges. Cold air rushed out, but it wasn't the clean cold of winter. This was stale, trapped, the smell of a place that had been sealed tight for a long time. Dust and old wood and something else, something faintly metallic that made the hair on Marcus's neck stand up. Bear pushed past him, a dark shape disappearing into the blackness. Marcus fumbled for his flashlight, the beam cutting through dust motes that hung suspended like they'd been waiting years for someone to disturb them. The interior was exactly as he remembered, frozen in time. The same plaid couch, the same wooden table scarred with his childhood carvings, the same stone fireplace that had seemed enormous when he was small. But everything was covered in sheets, white shapes in the darkness that looked almost human in the flashlight beam. Bear's nails clicked across the hardwood floor, moving from room to room with purpose. Marcus followed slowly, sweeping the light across walls lined with faded photographs. Uncle Thomas as a young man, serious-faced in a military uniform Marcus didn't recognize. Thomas standing on a dock with a fishing rod. Thomas in front of this very cabin, but younger, the building behind him looking newer, stronger. And then a photograph that made Marcus stop cold. His father, maybe 20 years old, standing on the lake ice with Thomas, both of them holding a massive pike between them, grinning at the camera. Marcus's father had died when Marcus was 8, a car accident they'd said, though his mother had never talked about it. Never talked about Thomas either, actually. Never explained why they'd stopped visiting the lake. Marcus reached out to touch the frame, fingers coming away dusty. "What were you hiding up here, Uncle Thomas?" he whispered. Bear barked. Once. Sharp and urgent. Marcus spun, flashlight beams sweeping toward the sound. The dog stood in the kitchen doorway, hackles raised, staring at something Marcus couldn't see. "What is it, boy?" Bear backed up 2 steps, never taking his eyes off whatever he'd found. Then he barked again, the deep warning bark he'd used in Kandahar when he detected IEDs, when danger was close and real. Marcus's training kicked in automatically. Breathing steadied. Pulse slowed. Body moved with muscle memory toward the threat, flashlight in one hand, other hand instinctively reaching for a sidearm that hadn't been there in 3 years. The kitchen was small, unchanged. Counters bare except for a layer of dust. Sink empty. Cabinets closed. But Bear wasn't looking at any of that. He was staring at the floor. Marcus crouched slowly, running his flashlight across the old linoleum. At first he saw nothing. Then the light caught something, a seam, barely visible, running along the edge of the counter. He pressed his palm against the floor. Cold. Much colder than it should be, even in an unheated cabin. Bear whined, a sound he almost never made, pressing his nose against the seam. Marcus's heart started to pound. Not from fear, from recognition. He'd seen hidden compartments before. Crawl spaces. Smuggler's holds. Rooms that weren't supposed to exist. He stood, opened drawers until he found a butter knife, then wedged it into the seam. The linoleum lifted easier than it should have, peeling back to reveal not subflooring but metal. A hatch. Steel, reinforced, with a circular locking mechanism that looked military-grade. Jesus, Marcus breathed. Bear's tail went rigid, every muscle in his body tight with attention. Marcus's fingers found the wheel lock. It was stiff with disuse, but when he applied pressure, it turned. Smoothly. Too smoothly. Someone had maintained this. Recently. The hatch opened with a hiss of escaping air, and a wave of cold so intense it felt like diving into Arctic water rushed up from below. Marcus stepped back instinctively, flashlight beam plunging into the darkness beneath the kitchen floor. Metal stairs descended into black. Bear didn't hesitate. The dog was already on the first step, looking back at Marcus with an expression that clearly said, "Are you coming or not?" Marcus's hands were shaking. Not from the cold. From something else, something deeper. The same feeling he'd had in Afghanistan right before everything went to hell. The sense that the world was about to shift, that nothing would be the same after the next step. But he'd learned a long time ago that running from that feeling didn't make it go away. He descended into the dark. The stairs were steep, maybe 20 feet down, ending in a narrow corridor carved from stone and reinforced with steel beams. The walls were smooth, too smooth to be natural, and the air tasted like metal and ice. Bear's breath created small clouds as he moved ahead, nose working, processing information Marcus's limited human senses couldn't detect. The corridor opened into a chamber. Marcus stopped at the threshold, flashlight beams sweeping across a space that shouldn't exist. The room was massive, maybe 30 feet across, carved deep into the bedrock beneath the lake. The ceiling was arched, supported by steel girders, and the walls were lined with something that looked like industrial insulation. But that wasn't what made Marcus's breath catch. The far wall was transparent. Thick glass or some kind of clear polymer, floor to ceiling, and beyond it was ice. Not just ice. Frozen lake water, perfectly preserved, and suspended in that ice were objects. Marcus walked forward slowly, Bear pressed against his leg. Gold bars. He could see them clearly, stacked in neat rows, each one stamped with markings he couldn't quite read in the dim light. And not just gold. There were crates, sealed containers made of metal and wood, labels faded but still visible. His flashlight beam caught text, U.S. Army, classified, 1952. Marcus's pulse hammered in his ears. "What the hell did you do, Thomas?" He moved along the glass wall, counting. 10 crates. 20. The gold alone. He had no idea what that was worth. Millions. Tens of millions. And then he saw the photographs. They were mounted on the wall to his right, protected behind glass, arranged like a museum exhibit. Military personnel standing in front of what looked like a train. Soldiers loading crates. Documents stamped with official seals. And in the center, a photograph of Uncle Thomas, younger, in uniform, standing with 3 other men in front of a sign Marcus could barely read. Special Operations, Asset Recovery Division. Bear whined softly, pressing closer. Marcus stepped to a metal desk positioned against the opposite wall. Papers were stacked neatly, weighted down by a stone. On top was an envelope with Marcus's name written in Thomas's careful script. His hands shook as he opened it. Marcus, if you're reading this, you found the vault. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you myself. I'm sorry for many things. In 1952, I was part of a classified operation to recover assets from a train that had been lost during the final days of World War II. Gold, artifacts, financial instruments stolen by the Nazis and never returned to their rightful owners. Our orders were to secure everything and transport it to federal facilities. But the operation was compromised. Men I trusted, men in positions of power, intended to steal what we'd recovered. They killed 2 of my unit to cover their tracks. Would have killed me too, but I escaped with a portion of what we'd found. I brought it here, hid it beneath the lake, beneath the cabin, where they couldn't touch it. I've spent 40 years protecting it, waiting for the right time to expose what happened. That time is now. The men responsible have risen to positions of power. One of them, Richard Holloway, now owns half of Montana. His son, Grant Holloway, is continuing his father's work. They know what I took. They've been searching for it. They'll come for you, Marcus. They'll come for the cabin. Don't let them take it. Don't let them bury the truth again. The evidence is all here. Names, dates, photographs. Everything you need to expose them. But you have to be smart. You have to be strong. You have to be the Marine I know you are. I'm sorry to put this burden on you, but I had no one else to trust. The combination to the vault's interior chamber is your father's birthday. He knew about this, Marcus. He was helping me before he died. They killed him for it. I'm sorry, Uncle Thomas. The letter slipped from Marcus's fingers. His father. The car accident that wasn't an accident. 40 years of secrets. And now it was all sitting in his lap, frozen beneath a lake in the middle of nowhere. Bear's bark shattered his thoughts. Not a warning this time. Urgent. Immediate. Marcus spun. The dog was at the base of the stairs, staring up, hackles raised so high his silhouette looked twice its normal size. Then Marcus heard it. Footsteps. Above them. In the cabin. Someone else was here. Marcus killed his flashlight instantly, plunging the vault into absolute darkness. His heart slammed against his ribs, but his hands were steady as he moved toward Bear, fingers finding the dog's collar. Quiet, he breathed. Easy. Above them, floorboards creaked. Slow, deliberate steps. Not trying to be silent, but not rushing either. Whoever it was, they knew the cabin, knew how to move through it. Bear's muscles vibrated under Marcus's hand, every instinct telling the dog to charge, to protect, to engage. But years of training held him still, waiting for the command. Marcus's mind raced through scenarios. Could be Father Michael checking on the property. Could be a neighbor. Could be someone who'd seen his truck lights and gotten curious. Could be exactly who Thomas warned him about. The footsteps moved toward the kitchen, stopped directly above the open hatch. A flashlight beam cut down through the opening, sweeping the stairs, probing the darkness. I know you're down there. The voice was male, older, carrying the kind of authority that expected to be obeyed. Marcus Chen, your truck's outside. No point hiding. Marcus didn't answer. His eyes had adjusted enough to see Bear's outline. The dog's body coiled like a spring. The voice continued, almost conversational. My name is Grant Holloway. I'm sure your uncle mentioned me in whatever letter he left you. I'd like to have a conversation. Just a conversation. I'm not here to cause trouble. Marcus knew a lie when he heard one. He'd heard enough of them in his life. I'm alone, Holloway continued. Unarmed. I just want to talk about the property. About what you've inherited. There's no need for this to be complicated. Silence stretched. Marcus could hear his own heartbeat, Bear's shallow breathing, and somewhere far above, wind battering the cabin walls. Then Holloway's tone shifted. Harder. Or we can do this the difficult way. I have men who can be here in 20 minutes. Men who won't be as patient as I am. Men who won't give you options. Marcus's jaw tightened. Every instinct screamed to stay hidden, to wait him out, but he was trapped down here. One exit, one way up. And if Holloway was telling the truth about backup, Marcus would be caught in a hole with no way out. He made a decision. Bare heel. He stood slowly, flicked on his flashlight, and pointed it up the stairs. The beam caught Holloway's face, squinting against the sudden light. Late 50s, maybe 60. Silver hair, expensive winter coat, the kind of face that smiled in boardrooms while signing papers that destroyed lives. Smart, Holloway said. Come on up. Let's talk like civilized people. Marcus climbed the stairs slowly, Bear glued to his side. When he emerged into the kitchen, Holloway had stepped back, hands visible, empty. True to his word, he appeared unarmed. But Marcus had learned in Afghanistan that the most dangerous weapons weren't always the ones you could see. Thank you, Holloway said, that boardroom smile fixed in place. I appreciate your cooperation. What do you want? Marcus asked flatly. Direct. I like that. Holloway glanced around the cabin, taking in the dust, the sheets, the decay. This place has seen better days. Must be quite a shock, inheriting it like this. Your uncle was a difficult man. Stubborn. Refused every reasonable offer I made over the years. Reasonable, Marcus repeated, the word tasting bitter. $50,000 for property that's falling apart, in the middle of nowhere, with no road access half the year. Holloway spread his hands. I'd say that's more than fair. Generous, even. Marcus said nothing. Bear's low growl filled the silence. Holloway's smile tightened. I'm developing the North Shore. Resort property. Luxury cabins. This parcel is the last piece I need. I'm prepared to offer you $60,000. Cash. You could walk away tomorrow, start fresh somewhere warm. Leave all this. He gestured vaguely at the cabin. Behind you. Why do you want it so badly? Marcus asked. I just told you. Development. Bullshit. The word came out flat, final. You want what's under it. Holloway's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Something cold. Your uncle filled your head with stories, I see. Conspiracy theories. Thomas was a paranoid old man. Whatever he told you. He told me you killed my father. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Holloway was very still. That's a serious accusation. Is it true? Your father died in a car accident. I'm sorry for your loss, but I had nothing to do with it. You're lying. Bear's growl deepened. Holloway took a small step back, eyeing the dog warily. Mr. Chen, I understand you've been through a lot. Military service, PTSD, homelessness. You're not thinking clearly. You're grasping at explanations for tragedies that don't have good answers. His voice took on a sympathetic tone that made Marcus's skin crawl. Let me help you. Take the $60,000. Get yourself somewhere stable. Get treatment. Move forward with your life. Get out, Marcus said quietly. Holloway's mask slipped. Just for a second, but long enough for Marcus to see the calculation behind it, the cold assessment of a man weighing his options. You're making a mistake, Holloway said. Wouldn't be my first. Holloway smiled, but there was no warmth in it. No, I suspect it wouldn't. He moved toward the door, pausing at the threshold. I'll give you 3 days to reconsider. After that, things get more complicated. Property taxes, code violations, legal challenges. This cabin won't survive winter anyway. Take the smart way out while you can. He left. The door closing softly behind him felt more threatening than if he'd slammed it. Marcus stood frozen for a long moment, listening to a vehicle start outside, tires crunching over snow, the sound fading into the storm. Bear pressed against his leg, whining softly. Yeah, Marcus murmured, hand dropping to the dog's head. I know. We're in trouble. He moved to the window, peering through a gap in the boards. Taillights disappeared into the white chaos. Alone again, but not for long. Holloway would be back. With friends. With leverage. With whatever it took to get what he wanted. Marcus turned back toward the open hatch in the kitchen floor. His uncle had protected this secret for 40 years. Had died protecting it. Had lost his brother, Marcus's father, to it. Now it was Marcus's turn. A broke veteran with PTSD, a wounded dog, and $312 million in stolen gold hidden under a frozen lake. He started laughing. Couldn't help it. The absurdity of it, the impossibility, the sheer insanity. Bear tilted his head, confused. It's okay, boy. Marcus managed between laughs that were too close to sobs. We've faced worse odds than this. Had they? He honestly wasn't sure anymore. Outside, the storm intensified. Snow hammered against the cabin walls. Wind screamed across the lake. And somewhere in the darkness, Marcus knew. Grant Holloway was making phone calls, planning his next move, assembling the pieces to take everything. Marcus looked down at Bear, at the dog who'd pulled him from burning vehicles, who'd detected explosives before they could kill him, who'd stayed by his side through every nightmare and breakdown and moment when giving up seemed like the only option. "What do you think, boy? We fight." Bear's tail thumped once against the floor. Marcus nodded. "Yeah, that's what I figured." He descended into the vault again, this time with purpose. His father's birthday, February 14th, 0214. He found the combination lock on a reinforced door set into the ice wall. His hands shook as he spun the dial. 0-2-1-4. The lock clicked. The door swung open. The interior chamber was smaller, climate-controlled somehow, the temperature just above freezing. And inside, stacked on shelves like library books, were files. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Marcus pulled one at random. Opened it. Photographs spilled out. Military officers standing with men in expensive suits. Financial documents. Transfer orders. And a memo, dated 1952, signed by someone whose name Marcus recognized from history books. His hands went numb. This wasn't just evidence of theft. This was proof of conspiracy that reached the highest levels of government. "Uncle Thomas," he whispered. "What the hell did you get into?" Bear whined, sensing Marcus's distress. Marcus grabbed his phone. No signal this deep underground. He'd have to go up, find reception, call someone. But who? The police? They were probably in Holloway's pocket. FBI? Would they even believe him? He needed help. Real help. Someone he could trust. His mind went to Riley Martinez, his old squad leader, the only person from his unit he still talked to. Riley had settled in Missoula, working as a private investigator, staying busy, staying sane. If anyone would believe him, if anyone could help, it was Riley. Marcus climbed back up to the cabin, Bear following close. He sealed the hatch, covered it with the linoleum, and moved to the front window where his phone flickered to life with one bar of signal. He dialed. It rang 4 times before a familiar voice answered, rough with sleep. "This better be good, Chen. It's 2 in the morning." "Riley," Marcus said, surprised at how steady his voice sounded. "I need help. I'm at Glacier Lake, Montana. I've got a problem." A pause. Then Riley's voice sharpened, all business. "What kind of problem?" "The kind that involves $312 million, a government conspiracy, and a man who probably killed my father." Silence. Long enough that Marcus checked to see if the call had dropped. Then Riley said quietly, "I'll be there by noon. Don't do anything stupid until I get there." Define stupid. Anything that gets you or Bear killed. Sit tight. Stay hidden. I'm coming. The call ended. Marcus lowered the phone, staring out at the storm. Bear leaned against him, solid and warm. 12 hours, Marcus murmured. "We just have to survive 12 hours. Outside, lightning cracked across the lake, illuminating the frozen expanse in stark white. For just a moment, Marcus could see the ice stretching toward the far shore, the wind-sculpted drifts, the dark line of the forest beyond. And headlights. Multiple sets, winding down the access road toward the cabin. His stomach dropped. So much for 3 days. Bear's hackles rose, a low growl building in his chest. Marcus counted vehicles. 3, maybe 4. Too many for a friendly visit. Too coordinated to be random. Holloway hadn't lied about having men. He'd just lied about how patient he was willing to be. Marcus moved fast, years of training taking over. He grabbed his duffel, pulled out the 9mm he technically wasn't supposed to have, checked the magazine. 15 rounds. He had 2 spare mags. 45 rounds total against however many men were in those vehicles. Not great odds. He looked around the cabin, assessing defensible positions, exit routes, vulnerabilities. Windows boarded up, good for cover, bad for sight lines. One entrance, easy to defend, but easy to trap. Back door existed, but opened onto a 15-foot drop down a rocky slope to the frozen lake. Bear circled him, agitated but controlled, waiting for orders. The vehicle stopped about 100 yards from the cabin. Engines cut. Doors opened and closed. Voices carried on the wind, low and purposeful. Marcus moved to a gap in the boards, peering out. 6 men. No, 7. Spreading out, forming a perimeter. They moved like professionals. Ex-military, maybe. Or current security contractors. All wearing tactical gear. All carrying long guns. His mouth went dry. This wasn't a negotiation. This was an extraction. One man stepped forward, speaking into a radio. Marcus couldn't hear the words, but he recognized the body language. Team leader. Making final checks before engagement. Then a voice boomed across the clearing, amplified by a megaphone. Marcus Chen. This is private security acting under legal authority. You are trespassing on property that is under dispute. Come out with your hands visible. You will not be harmed. Marcus almost laughed. Legal authority. As if any of this was legal. Bear growled. Deep and continuous. I know, boy, Marcus murmured. But we're outgunned. His phone buzzed. Text from Riley. Situation? Marcus typed quickly with shaking fingers. 7 armed hostiles. Claiming legal authority. Coming for the cabin. Response came immediately. Do not engage. Barricade and wait. Help is coming. 30 minutes. 30 minutes. He had to hold them off for 30 minutes. Marcus moved fast, dragging furniture against the door. The old couch, heavy and solid. The kitchen table. Anything he could use to buy seconds. Outside, the voice continued. We are authorized to use force if necessary. This is your final warning. Marcus checked his weapon again. Bear pressed against his leg, trembling not with fear, but with adrenaline, with the need to act. Not yet, Marcus whispered. Not yet, boy. A window exploded inward, glass and wood flying as something heavy crashed through. A canister rolled across the floor, spewing white smoke. Tear gas. Marcus grabbed Bear's collar, dragging the dog toward the kitchen, away from the spreading cloud. His eyes were already burning, lungs seizing. Bear coughed, a horrible hacking sound. Another window shattered. More gas. They wanted him blind, choking, helpless. Marcus felt panic rising, the old familiar terror from Afghanistan, smoke and chaos and bodies and screaming. His vision tunneled. Breath came in short gasps. Bear barked, sharp and close to his ear. The sound cut through the panic like a knife. Focus. Breathe. Move. Marcus pulled his shirt over his mouth and nose, grabbed a kitchen towel, soaked it in the sink, and pressed it to Bear's muzzle. The dog fought it for a second, then understood, holding still while Marcus tied it loosely around his snout. Footsteps on the porch. The door handle rattled. Breach in 3, 2. Marcus didn't wait for one. He fired 3 shots through the door, center mass where the voice had been. The booming reports echoed through the cabin, through his skull. Screaming outside. Someone hit. Men shouting. Contact. Hostile is armed. Hostile is armed. Return fire erupted. Bullets punched through the boarded windows, through the walls, through everything. Marcus hit the floor, covering Bear's body with his own as the cabin disintegrated around them. Wood splintered. Glass shattered. The old couch Marcus had used as a barricade exploded in a cloud of stuffing. Then silence. Sudden and ringing. Marcus's ears buzzed. Bear squirmed beneath him, uninjured but desperate to move. The smoke was thicker now, visibility down to a few feet. Stand down, someone shouted outside. Jesus Christ, he shot Thompson. Is he alive? Yeah, Vest caught it, but he's done. Good. 1 down. 6 to go. Marcus low-crawled toward the back of the cabin, toward the door that opened onto the drop. It was a long fall to the ice, but better than being trapped inside. A shadow moved past a window. Marcus fired twice. The shadow dropped. More shouting. More gunfire. Bullets tracking him through the walls, following his muzzle flash. Amateur move. But he was running out of options. He reached the back door, threw it open. Wind and snow blasted in, clearing some of the smoke. The drop looked worse than he remembered. 15 feet onto ice and rock. Bear didn't hesitate. The dog leaped, hit the slope, tumbled, found his feet, and barked once. Come on. Marcus jumped. The impact drove the air from his lungs. He rolled, felt something in his shoulder tear, kept rolling until he hit level ice. Bear was already moving, circling back to him, checking for injuries. I'm good, Marcus gasped. Go, go. They ran. Across the ice, toward the tree line on the far side of the lake. Behind them, men were already coming around the cabin, flashlights sweeping, weapons raised. There, on the ice. Light him up. Gunfire erupted again. Bullets whined past Marcus's head, cracked against the ice at his feet. One round passed so close he felt the air displacement against his cheek. Bear ran ahead, then circled back, then ahead again, making himself a moving target, drawing fire. "No!" Marcus shouted. "Bear, heel!" But the dog knew what he was doing. Protecting. Always protecting. Marcus sprinted harder, boots slipping on ice, lungs screaming. The tree line was close, maybe 50 yards, but it felt like miles. His shoulder throbbed. His vision blurred. A round caught him. Not center mass, thank God, but high on the left arm, tearing through muscle. The impact spun him halfway around. He went down hard, sliding across the ice. Bear was there instantly, standing over him, barking furiously at the approaching men. Marcus tried to stand. Couldn't. The world tilted. Blood ran hot down his arm, steaming in the frozen air. "I'm sorry, boy," he whispered. "I'm sorry." Bear grabbed his jacket collar, pulling, trying to drag him toward the trees. Flashlight beams converged, boots crunching on ice. Getting closer. Marcus raised his weapon with his good arm. 5 rounds left. He'd make them count. Then a new sound cut through the night. Helicopter rotors. Low and fast, coming from the north. The men stopped, looking up. A spotlight blazed to life, pinning them against the ice like insects. A voice boomed from a loudspeaker, impossibly loud. "Federal agents. Drop your weapons. Drop your weapons now." The men scattered, running for the shore, for their vehicles, for anywhere that wasn't under that spotlight. The helicopter descended, rotor wash kicking up snow and ice in blinding spirals. Marcus shielded his eyes, Bear pressed against him. Figures fast roped down from the hovering aircraft. Black tactical gear. FBI, in huge yellow letters across their vests. One of them ran toward Marcus, shouting into a radio. "Civilian down. We need medical. Now." Marcus tried to speak, to explain, but the words wouldn't come. The ice was so cold against his back. The sky above was so bright. Bear's face appeared in his vision, the dog's tongue licking his face frantically. "Good boy," Marcus managed. "Good boy, Bear." Then Riley was there, appearing out of nowhere, kneeling beside him. "Chen, you stupid son of a bitch. I said don't do anything stupid." Defined differently. Marcus whispered. "Yeah, I know. Stay with me. Medic's coming." "Bear. He's fine. He's right here. Both of you are going to be fine." Marcus's vision was fading, darkness creeping in from the edges. But he could still hear. Bear whining. Riley cursing. Helicopter rotors. And sirens, distant but getting closer. The last thing he saw before everything went black was FBI agents leading the security team away in handcuffs. 7 men with their hands behind their backs, walking toward a future behind bars. And Grant Holloway, standing by one of the vehicles, face pale in the spotlight, watching his entire operation collapse. Justice. Finally, Marcus let the darkness take him. He woke to beeping. Steady, rhythmic, annoying. Hospital sounds. Hospital smells. Antiseptic and floor wax, and that particular staleness of recycled air. Marcus's eyes opened slowly. White ceiling. Fluorescent lights. For line in his right arm. Bandages covering his left shoulder. And Bear, lying on the floor beside the bed, head on his paws, watching Marcus with those impossibly expressive eyes. The moment Marcus stirred, the dog was up, tail wagging, nose pressing against Marcus's hand. "Hey, boy," Marcus croaked. His throat felt like sandpaper. "We alive?" "Barely." Riley's voice. She sat in a chair by the window, laptop open, but her attention fully on Marcus. "You lost a lot of blood. Bullet went clean through, missed the bone. You'll heal." Marcus tried to sit up. Pain lanced through his shoulder. "How long?" 2 days. They kept you sedated while they patched you up." Riley stood, moved to his bedside. She looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. "You scared the hell out of me, Chen. How did you, the FBI?" "I called them while I was driving up. Old contact from my army days. Works in their asset forfeiture division. Told him you'd found something big. He mobilized a team out of Missoula, got them moving about 5 minutes before Holloway's goons showed up." Marcus closed his eyes. "They would have killed me." "Yeah, probably." Riley's hand rested briefly on his good shoulder. "But they didn't. You held them off long enough. And Bear," she looked down at the dog. "Bear kept you alive." Again, Marcus's fingers found Bear's ears, scratching gently. The dog leaned into the touch, eyes closing in contentment. "What happened?" "After FBI raided Holloway's offices, found documents linking him to the private security team, to plans to seize the cabin, to his father's involvement in the original theft. Your uncle's evidence was enough to get warrants. They're building a case now. The vault. Secured. They're cataloging everything. The gold alone is worth $312 million, like your uncle said. But the documents, Marcus, the files your uncle kept, they're going to bring down people. Important people. This is going to be huge. Marcus stared at the ceiling, processing. His uncle's 40-year fight. His father's death. All of it leading to this moment. What happens to the cabin? He asked quietly. Riley smiled. It's yours. Federal government confirmed your uncle's ownership was legitimate. Holloway had no legal claim. Never did. He'll appeal. Fight it. From prison. Riley's smile widened. He was arrested yesterday. Attempted murder, conspiracy, theft of federal assets. He's not getting bail. Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. Relief. Vindication. Grief for what it had cost his family to reach this point. The gold, Riley continued, technically belongs to the families it was stolen from during the war. FBI is working with international agencies to trace ownership. It's going to take years. But anything that can't be returned, any recovered assets without clear provenance, reverts to the recovery agent's estate. My uncle. And now you. We're talking tens of millions, Marcus. Maybe more. The number was too big to comprehend. Marcus had been living in shelters, counting change for meals. And now, I don't want it, he said. Riley raised an eyebrow. What? The money. Whatever comes back. I don't want it. Marcus, my uncle spent 40 years hiding. My father died. I'm not going to live off blood money. He looked at Bear, at the dog who'd been through hell beside him. There are better uses for it. Riley studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. What did you have in mind? Marcus had been thinking about it since he'd first read his uncle's letter. About the men he'd served with who'd come home broken. About the dogs who'd served and been abandoned. About the desperate feeling of having nowhere to go, no one to trust, nothing to hold on to. A sanctuary, he said quietly. For veterans and their service dogs. A place they can heal. Together. Riley's expression softened. Your uncle would have liked that. Yeah, I think he would. A knock at the door interrupted them. A man in a suit entered, FBI credentials already out. Special Agent David Morrison. Late 40s, serious face, carrying a briefcase. Mr. Chen, glad to see you're awake. I need to ask you some questions when you're feeling up to it. Marcus nodded. Now's fine. Morrison pulled up a chair. We've been through your uncle's files. The evidence is solid. We've already arrested 3 individuals connected to the original theft, including a retired senator. More arrests are coming. Good. But I need to understand the timeline. How long have you known about the vault? Marcus walked him through everything. The letter. Finding the cabin. Discovering the hatch. Holloway's visit. The attack. Morrison took notes, occasionally asking for clarification. When Marcus finished, the agent sat back, processing. You're lucky to be alive, he said finally. I know. Your uncle was smart, keeping this hidden. But he made enemies. Powerful enemies. They're not going to disappear just because Holloway is in custody. What are you saying? I'm saying you need to be careful. Stay visible. Stay protected. Don't make yourself an easy target. Morrison stood. We'll have agents at the cabin for the next few weeks, securing the site. You'll be safe there. After he left, Riley leaned against the wall, arms crossed. You planning to go back? Yeah, Marcus said without hesitation. It's home. It's a crime scene. It's still home. Riley sighed. You're stubborn as hell, you know that? Marine. Yeah. But she was smiling. I'll help. Whatever you need to fix that place up, turn it into your sanctuary. I'm in. Riley, don't argue. I'm bored anyway. This'll give me something to do. Marcus felt something warm spread through his chest. Gratitude. Friendship. The sense of not being alone for the first time in years. Bear's tail thumped against the floor, as if agreeing with the plan. 3 days later, Marcus was released from the hospital. Riley drove him back to Glacier Lake in her truck, Bear riding in the back with his head hanging out the window, tongue lolling in the cold air. The cabin looked different in daylight. Bullet holes scarred the walls. Windows were completely shattered. The porch sagged worse than before, but it was still standing. FBI agents were still on site, processing evidence from the vault. They'd erected a temporary shelter over the open hatch, keeping the interior climate controlled. Agent Morrison met them at the door. "Mr. Chen, welcome home." Marcus looked around at the damage. "Some home. It'll take work. But the structure is sound. Reinforced better than most modern buildings, actually. Your uncle knew what he was doing." They walked through the cabin together. Marcus's belongings had been moved to the intact bedroom. The kitchen was being repaired. The vault would remain sealed except for authorized access. But eventually, it would be emptied and the space could be reclaimed. "We found something else," Morrison said, leading Marcus to the back room. Hidden in the wall cavity, a metal box sat on the table, weatherproof, sealed with a combination lock. "We haven't opened it," Morrison said. "It's addressed to you." Marcus stepped closer. His name was stamped on the lid in his uncle's handwriting. His hands shook as he worked the combination. His father's birthday again. 0214. The lock clicked. The lid opened. Inside were letters. Dozens of them. All from his uncle, dated over the years, written but never sent. Each one addressed to Marcus. He picked up the first one, dated 1995, the year his father died. "Marcus, you're 8 years old now. Too young to understand what's happened. Too young to know that your father died because of me, because of what I dragged him into. I wanted to tell you, to explain. But how do you tell a child that monsters are real? That they wear suits and sit in offices and order deaths like they're ordering lunch? I can't. So I write these letters instead, hoping someday you'll be old enough to read them, to understand. Your father was a good man. The best man I knew. He deserved better than what I brought to his door. I'm sorry." Marcus's vision blurred. He set the letter down carefully, overwhelmed. Riley touched his good shoulder gently. "You don't have to read them all now." "Yeah," Marcus managed. "Yeah, I know." But he would read them. Every single one. His uncle's 40-year confession. His father's true story. The missing pieces of his own history finally revealed. Agent Morrison excused himself, giving them privacy. Bear pressed against Marcus's leg, sensing his emotional state. Marcus picked up another letter. This one dated 2008, the year Marcus deployed to Afghanistan. "Marcus, I saw your name in the newspaper. Marine Corps, 2nd Battalion. Deploying overseas. I wanted to be there. To see you off. To tell you to be careful, to come home safe. But I stayed away. Like I always have. Protecting you by staying distant. I hope it's the right choice. I hope you forgive me someday." Tears ran down Marcus's face. He didn't try to stop them. Bear whined softly, licking his hand. "He loved you," Riley said quietly. "In his own broken way, he loved you." "I know," Marcus whispered. "I know he did." They stood there for a long time, in the damaged cabin on the frozen lake, surrounded by 40 years of secrets finally brought to light. Outside, snow began to fall again. Soft, gentle, covering the scars. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of activity. Contractors arrived to repair the cabin. FBI agents continued their investigation. Media descended once the story broke, cameras and reporters shouting questions Marcus refused to answer. Riley handled most of it, fierce and protective, telling journalists exactly where they could shove their microphones. Marcus focused on healing, on reading his uncle's letters, on planning the sanctuary. He found architects, talked to VA counselors, reached out to veteran organizations. The response was overwhelming. Everyone wanted to help. Donations poured in. Volunteers offered their time. The cabin would become the main house. The land around it would hold smaller structures, private spaces where veterans and their service dogs could heal together. Therapy rooms, training areas, a memorial garden for those who didn't make it home. Marcus named it the Thomas Chen Veterans and Canine Sanctuary. His uncle would have hated the attention, would have preferred to stay hidden, unknown. But Marcus needed everyone to know what Thomas had done. The courage it took to stand against corruption. The price his family had paid. It was the only way to make sure it meant something. By Christmas Eve, the cabin was livable again. New windows. Repaired walls. The bullet holes filled and painted over, though Marcus insisted they leave a few visible. Reminders. History. Riley had strung lights across the porch, arguing that the place needed something festive. Marcus had rolled his eyes but secretly appreciated it. They sat on the newly rebuilt porch that evening, Marcus and Riley and Bear, watching snow fall across the frozen lake. The FBI had packed up the day before, taking the last of the evidence. The vault was empty now, the gold returned to its rightful owners or held in federal custody, pending final determinations. But the space remained, a reminder under the cabin of everything that had happened. You think he's watching? Riley asked quietly. Your uncle? Marcus considered. I think he's resting. Finally, Bear's tail thumped against the porch. What about you? Riley asked. You going to be okay here? It's pretty isolated. That's the point, Marcus said. Space. Quiet. Room to breathe. And when the veterans start arriving? Then it won't be quiet anymore. And that'll be okay too. Riley smiled. You've changed, Chen. In a good way. Had he? Marcus wasn't sure. He still woke up at night, heart pounding, reaching for weapons that weren't there. Still flinched at loud noises. Still carried Afghanistan in his bones. But he also had purpose now. Direction. A reason to keep going that went beyond just surviving another day. I'm trying, he said simply. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the Christmas lights reflect off the snow. Somewhere across the lake, church bells rang, marking midnight. Riley stood, stretching. Merry Christmas, Marcus. Merry Christmas, Riley. She headed inside, leaving Marcus alone with Bear and the night. Marcus looked down at the dog, at the scars on his fur, the gray around his muzzle, the eyes that had seen too much. We did it, boy, he whispered. We actually did it. Bear's tail swept across the porch, slow and content. Marcus thought about his uncle's letters, about his father, about the 40 years of secrets that had led to this moment, about the men who tried to bury the truth and failed, about the sanctuary that would rise here, built on truth and sacrifice and the stubborn refusal to let evil win. It wasn't the ending he'd expected when he'd driven up that snowy road 2 weeks ago, but maybe it was the ending his family had been working toward all along. Thank you, Marcus said to the night, to the lake, to the ghosts. Thank you for trusting me with this. The wind carried his words across the ice, into the forest, up into the mountains. And for just a moment, Marcus could have sworn he heard his uncle's voice, carried on that same wind. You did good, Marcus. You did real good. Bear pressed closer, warm and solid. Marcus smiled. They sat together on the porch, man and dog, watching Christmas morning arrive over Glacier Lake. The frozen water glittered in the first light, beautiful and terrible, holding 40 years of secrets in its depths. But the truth was free now. The light had won. And tomorrow, the real work would begin. Tomorrow, healing would start. Tomorrow, the Thomas Chen Veterans and Canine Sanctuary would open its doors to the first broken souls looking for peace. But tonight, Christmas night, Marcus Chen simply sat with his dog and felt something he hadn't felt in 12 years. Home. He was finally home. 6 months later, the sanctuary was full. 8 veterans, 12 dogs, and a staff of counselors, trainers, and volunteers who moved through the expanded compound with quiet purpose. Marcus stood on the rebuilt dock, watching the morning sun burn through mist rising from the lake. The ice had broken months ago. Now the water moved, dark and clean, fish jumping in the shallows. Bear sat beside him, gray muzzle resting on Marcus's knee. Getting old, boy, Marcus murmured. Bear's tail thumped once, disagreeing. Behind them, laughter drifted from the main house. Someone had made pancakes. The smell of coffee and pine and possibility hung in the air. A young woman approached, maybe 25, Marine Corps tattoo visible on her forearm. Her service dog, a German shepherd named Luna, walked at her side. Mr. Chen. Just Marcus. She smiled nervously. I wanted to thank you. For this place. For what you're building here. You don't have to thank me. I do. I was living in my car 3 weeks ago. Couldn't find work. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't. She stopped, gathering herself. This place saved my life. Marcus knew that feeling. You saved your own life. You just needed somewhere safe to do it. She nodded, eyes bright with tears she wouldn't let fall. Luna pressed against her leg, grounding her. It gets easier, Marcus said quietly. Not all the way, but easier. Promise. Promise. She walked back toward the house, Luna at her side, both of them looking steadier than when they'd arrived. Riley appeared from the trail, carrying lumber. Doc's looking good. Thanks to you. Thanks to us. She set down the wood, wiping sweat from her forehead. Counselor says we're at capacity. Got a waiting list of 40 names. We'll need to expand again. I know. I'm already talking to contractors. Marcus smiled. What would I do without you? Crash and burn, probably. Probably. They stood together, looking out at the lake, at the sanctuary behind them, at the life they'd built from tragedy and secrets and stubborn hope. Your uncle would be proud, Riley said. Yeah, Marcus agreed. I think he would be. Bear barked suddenly, tail wagging hard. A truck was coming up the road. Official looking. Federal plates. Agent Morrison climbed out, carrying a folder. Chen. Martinez. He nodded to each of them. Got news. They gathered in Marcus's office, Bear settling at his feet. Morrison opened the folder. Final accounting is done. After restitution to identified families and federal processing fees, the remaining recovered assets total $47 million. Marcus's breath caught. That much. All legally transferred to the Thomas Chen estate. To you. Morrison slid papers across the desk. Congratulations. You're a very wealthy man. Marcus stared at the numbers. Life-changing money. Enough to expand the sanctuary 100 times over. Enough to help thousands of veterans. There's more, Morrison said. The investigation has concluded. 23 arrests total, including 2 sitting senators and a federal judge. Your uncle's evidence was airtight. These people are going to prison for a very long time. Riley let out a low whistle. Justice. Finally, Morrison agreed. He stood, offering his hand to Marcus. Your family's fight is over. You won. Marcus shook his hand. Thank you. For everything. Thank you. For not letting them bury it. After Morrison left, Marcus sat in silence, processing. Bear's head rested on his knee, warm and grounding. $47 million, Riley said softly. You could do anything. Go anywhere. Marcus looked around his office. At the photos on the wall, veterans who'd come through the sanctuary. At the view of the lake through the window. At Bear, gray and scarred and still loyal. I'm already where I want to be, he said. Doing what I want to do. All of it goes to the sanctuary. Every penny. Riley smiled. Your uncle really did pick the right person to carry this forward. That night, Marcus walked down to the vault. The hatch was sealed now, marked with a plaque explaining what had been hidden there, what it had cost, why it mattered. He descended the stairs one last time. The chamber was empty, stripped clean, but the ice wall remained. Transparent, eternal, a reminder. Marcus pressed his palm against the cold surface. It's done, Uncle Thomas. Dad. It's finished. Silence answered, but it felt peaceful. Complete. He climbed back up, sealed the hatch, and walked outside into the Montana night. Stars blazed overhead, winter constellations wheeling through the darkness. The sanctuary glowed with warm light, windows golden, smoke rising from chimneys. Bear appeared from the shadows, tail wagging. Ready, boy. The dog barked once. Together they walked back toward the lights, toward home, toward the life they'd built from secrets and sacrifice and the stubborn belief that truth mattered. Behind them, the lake lay still and dark, its secrets finally released, its burden finally lifted. And above them, if Marcus listened carefully, he could almost hear voices on the wind. His uncle, his father, all the ones who'd fought and fallen, telling him, well done. Marcus smiled. Merry Christmas, he whispered to the night. Bear's tail thumped in agreement. They walked inside, into warmth and light and the sound of laughter. Into healing, into home, into the future they'd earned through courage and loyalty and love. The door closed behind them, and on Glacier Lake, peace settled like snow. Finally, completely, forever.